Hallelujah. You may be seated. Pray to honor you, Lord God. I thank you for the opportunity to fall upon this day before we did once again. And he has given us this opportunity that many people do not have this day. That's right. Because he has taught us that this day is a holy day. So therefore, we have to give him thanks and praise and honor him because he has selected us out of many people on the face of the earth to gather before him on this day. So we ask that he would continue to bless us and to teach us the way that we should live before him. We thank him for giving us knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. We thank him for giving us places to live in, clothes to wear, and food to eat. We thank him for allowing us to rejoice before him for the 7 days, to be able to acknowledge that it was him that brought us out of Egypt, to acknowledge that he's the one that will deliver us out of the land he has scattered us throughout the earth in. So we await that day when we will have redemption at his hand once again. So at this time, we're going to go into the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15, beginning with verse 19. Then we're going to go into chapter 16, talking about these holy seasons that we are commanded to observe during this time. And in Deuteronomy chapter 15, from verse 19, we're going to begin talking about the offering that or the procedure of the offering that would be presented during this time. For this week that we are observed is one of the 3 appointed times that all males will appear before Yahweh our God. And as we read in Exodus, not empty. So when we were dwelling in the land of Israel, this is the time of the year, or one of the times of the year, where people will bring their offerings. So the offerings not just for this season, but the offerings that we were commanded to give, such as the firstborn of our animals, which we read about now, and also the tithes that we collected throughout the year as well, will be brought to Jerusalem, the holy city, to be presented unto God as an offering, and for the priest to bring up on our behalf. So once again, we go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 15, beginning with verse 19.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
All the firstling males that are born of thy herd and of thy flock, thou shalt sanctify unto Yahweh thy God. Thou shalt do no work with the firstling of thine ox, nor share the firstling of thy flock. Thou shalt eat it before Yahweh thy God, year by year, in the place which Yahweh shall choose, thou and thy household. And if there be any blemish therein, lameness or blindness, any ill blemish whatsoever, thou shalt not sacrifice it unto Yahweh thy God. Thou shalt eat it within thy gates. The unclean and the clean may eat it alike, as the gazelle and as the hart. Only thou shalt not eat the blood thereof. Thou shalt pour it out upon the ground as water.
So the firstborn of our animals, of the clean animals, have to be presented unto God. And the reason for that is to read the season that we're observing at the time. For as a nation, the nation of Israel are the firstborn unto Yahweh, our God. And when God passed over Egypt and slew the firstborn of the Egyptians, he said that because of that, we have to redeem our firstborn, the firstborn of our children and the firstborn of our animals. Because once again, God is the one that slew the firstborn of the Egyptians. So now this is just, once again, the procedure of how we bring the firstborn animals unto God. When it comes to the firstborn of our sons, we know that they will be redeemed by money that will be given unto the priests, and the priests, we know that the Levites are the ones that take the place of the firstborn of the nation of Israel. So once again, we just read about the procedure of how the firstborn of our animals will be presented, and God only accepts perfect animals, or whole animals, or complete animals without any blemish. And as we mentioned, any of the firstborn of the animals that, if they have a blemish or any imperfection in them, then those animals we will be able to eat for ourselves. But when you read, going back to Leviticus, there still has to be a replacement. Because the perfect animals only go on the altar doesn't mean that we are absolved from giving the firstborn of our animals if the animal was born with a blemish. So there has to be a replacement that would be done. But God only accepts, the animal without blemish on the altar. So that, once again, what we just read was the procedure, and if it has a blemish, once again, we will be able to eat those animals for ourselves. So when it says whether you're clean or whether you're unclean, you can still eat that animal yourself. But under no circumstances are we allowed to drink of any blood or eat, cook the beast with the blood in it and eat the animal with the blood within it. So the blood has to be taken out of the animal or any animal that we eat. Going to Deuteronomy 16.
Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto Yahweh thy God. For in the month of Abib, Yahweh thy God brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt by night. And thou shalt sacrifice the Passover offering unto Yahweh thy God, of the flock and the herd, in the place which Yahweh shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction. For in haste didst thou come forth out of the land of Egypt, that thou mayest remember the day when thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt, all the days of thy life. And there shall be no leaven seen with thee in all thy borders 7 days. Neither shall any of the flesh which thou sacrificest the first day at even remain all night until the morning.
So once again, this is just an explanation or a recap of the season that we are coming to the close of. For God commanded us to keep this feast for 7 days.
Right.
So as we read here, we pray that the Most High God was with us today here and everybody throughout the earth that was observing this time, that we were able to remove the leavening out of our homes and eat unleavened bread for 7 days as we have been commanded to do. Because that will allow us to remember the fact that we left Egypt in haste. When we read right back in Exodus chapter 12, it explains to us that because we left Egypt in haste, so we didn't have time for the dough that we mixed to rise. So we ate unleavened bread coming out of Egypt. So this season is to remind us of us coming out of Egypt. We don't have the sacrifice of the Passover to go along with it that we just read about, but that sort of the animals what we performed and took the blood and put it upon the doorpost and the lintel of our homes, so that God will pass over it. When he passed over all the land of Egypt to slay the firstborn, and he's the one that protected us. And he caused the Egyptians to force us out. So that's why it says that we came out of Egypt by that night, because God passed over all of Egypt that night. And that was the night that we were delivered out of the land of Egypt. So we, once again, do await the time when God will deliver us out of the land that he has scattered us to once again. So we can continue reading on about this season once again.
Verse 5. Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover offering within any of thy gates, which Jehovah thy God giveth thee, but at the place which Jehovah thy God shall choose to cause his name to dwell in. There thou shalt sacrifice the Passover offering at even, at the going down of the sun, at the season that thou camest forth out of Egypt. And thou shalt roast it, and eat it in the place which Jehovah thy God shall choose, and thou shalt turn in the morning, and go unto thy tent.
So that's in regards to, once again, the sacrifice of the Passover, which we do not do in the lands of our captivity, as we just read. We're only allowed to do that in the place that Jehovah, our God, has chosen for offerings to be performed. But we still have to observe the season. We still have to observe the fact, yes, I'm here. We still have to observe the fact that this is all allowed. No, he said it all allowed like he's here.
Yeah.
And he's late.
And he's late.
So once again, so we came out of Egypt, and we thank the Most High God for allowing us to observe this season, for allowing us to remember this, because once again, not many people have this opportunity. Many people went to work today. Many people went to those that have school went to school today. So the Most High God has blessed us and separated us and taught us that we should not do any work on this day except for what we need to eat on this day. So we have to give thanks and praise to the Most High God and always be joyful whenever the Most High God has allowed us to gather before him. Continue.
Verse 6. Verse 8. 6 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to Jehovah thy God. Thou shalt do no work therein.
So that's, once again, that's this day that we're observing now, the 7th day of Chag Matzot. That this day we proclaim as a holy, God proclaimed as a holy day, and we keep it as the solemn assembly before Jehovah our God, and we don't do any work in it, of course, except for the work that is necessary for us to have our feast, in order for us to cook our food and bring our food together so that we may rejoice before the Most High God. Now, going into the next feast will be taking place 6 weeks from now, or a little over 6 weeks from now.
Verse 9. 7 weeks shalt thou number unto thee. From the time the sickle is first put to the standing corn, shalt thou begin to number 7 weeks. And thou shalt keep the feast of weeks unto Jehovah thy God, after the measure of the freewill offering of thy hand, which thou shalt give according as Jehovah thy God blesseth thee. And thou shalt rejoice before Jehovah thy God, thou and thy son, and thy daughter, and thy manservant, and thy maidservant, and the Levite that is within thy gates, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow that are in the midst of thee, in the place which Jehovah thy God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. And thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in Egypt, and thou shalt observe and do these statutes.
So that's talking about Shavuot, Chag Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, which we'll be observing a little over 6 weeks from now, because we start the counting from the Yom Rishon that just passed. So these seasons are given unto us to rejoice, and it mentions all of the people that should rejoice. That it's not just about the males; it's about our daughters, our servants, the Levite, and everybody that's around us is supposed to rejoice in these seasons. So we have to make sure that when these seasons come around, this week that just passed, Shavuot that is to come, and Sukkot that we're about to read about, that these are the days that we rejoice before God, that we put our all into it. When people observe their days, they shouldn't be observing their days stronger than we observe our days. That we live in a season we live in a time where people put their all into what they believe. But the nation of Israel, we know that we serve the true and living God, so we have to put more into what we believe and what we know is to be true. Continue.
Verse 13. Thou shalt keep the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. After that thou hast gathered in from thy threshing floor and from thy winepress. And thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son, thy daughter, thy manservant, and thy maidservant, and the Levite and stranger, and the fatherless and the widow that are within thy gates. 7 days shalt thou keep a feast unto Jehovah thy God in the place which Jehovah shall choose, because Jehovah thy God shall bless thee in all thy increase, and in all the work of thy hands, and thou shalt be altogether joyful. 3 times in the year shall all thy males appear before Jehovah thy God in the place which he shall choose, on the feast of unleavened bread, and on the feast of weeks, and on the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before Jehovah empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of Jehovah thy God, which he has given thee.
And the blessing that Jehovah our God gives us when we were dwelling in the land is the increase of all of our animals and of the crops that he allowed us to grow. And that's why during these seasons, these 3 times in the year, when the males appear before Jehovah God, we have the firstborn of our animals, we have the first fruits to give up, we also have the tithes of the animals and of the crops that we would go before the Most High God and bring it to him. And we would be able to share with other people. That will be part of rejoicing during this season. So let's speak briefly about rejoicing, because we speak a lot about, not just here, but in various places, what do we do in order to get the children captivated about this way of life? Mm-hmm. Especially during these seasons that they're supposed to observe, that, including the Sabbath day. Now, when you look at other people, once again, and what they do. Now, if you ask, we'll start with, if you ask an Israelite child, well, what do you do for the Feast of Unleavened Bread? What did you, ask anybody, what did y'all do what did you get out of the Feast of Unleavened Bread? But see, the reason why I asked that question is because that's the answer you're going to get. When you ask a child out there, what did you do for Easter? Oh, we went to Coney Island, we flew kites, we baked those cross buns. They have things that they could talk about their seasons. When it comes to Israel, we don't do anything during these seasons. But just some of us now go to work on the holy days and that's it. And they come together and eat. But everybody else that you ask about what they do, they can talk about the fun that they have during this time. So when we talk about captivating children, and even captivating adults, there have to be things that we include during the season that will cause them to remember these things year after year.
Absolutely.
That's why when you ask them a question of what do you remember about Chag Matzot, they have to think about an answer because their parents are looking at them for an answer. But the fact of the matter is, we don't do anything collectively to actually enjoy the season. So that's why you get the answer like that. But once again, like, anybody that's on Facebook, you remember what happened throughout last week. You see all types of pictures of people baking their buns and getting ready and preparing. Right. We don't see that amongst Israel. When Thanksgiving comes, you're going to see people post their pictures and how they prepare for Thanksgiving. When Sukkot comes, we don't see any preparation whatsoever. So it just shows that we are not doing enough to rejoice during these seasons, especially in comparison to what everybody else is doing to rejoice during their seasons. And that's why we lose people mentally, because we make these seasons dry. We don't do enough to make people, young and old, rejoice during this time, so that these are things that we can remember year after year. Because once again, you ask anybody, people, even if people leave their way of life, there are things that they did when they were younger that will cause them to come back. Traditions cause people to stay in line with what they were taught. When you don't have a tradition, then that's how you lose people. So if the children can't think about what did they do during Chag Matzot, during Shavuot, during Sukkot, that would cause them to latch onto this way of life, then when they get older, they have nothing to go back to if they ever get lost. So when the God says that we have to rejoice, the rejoice is also a commandment. So we have to make sure that we do the things necessary to rejoice during these seasons, because God gave this to us because he delivered us out of Egypt and because of the great things that he has done on our behalf. So once again, we thank the Most High God for this time. We thank the Most High God for allowing us to know that he is our God, to know that we are the children of Yisrael, to know that we have a great heritage that we have to latch onto and that we can take hold onto, and pray that the Most High God will deliver us once again speedily out of the land that he has scattered us to. So once again, thank you the Most High God for this day, as we will continue to rejoice before him, because they want to get out of here by 1 o'clock. So 1:30. Vice President said 1:30.
Numbers chapter 9.
So you good?
Okay.
So at this time, we're going to call up Morey Yiftach BINAH.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom again.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're not going to shorten the praise of the Most High God. And I've had this conversation more than a few times with the brothers. We got 24 hours of a holy day, and we dedicate an hour and a half to the Most High God. We're not going to cut that short. Now, we don't have to have the whole day about teaching. That's what I want us to understand. You know, we had this conversation in the back with the brothers the week before. If we don't make our days important to us, nobody else is going to make it important. The same way, if we don't take Torah, if Torah isn't important to us, nobody else is going to make it important to us. They don't want us serving God. They like us the way that we are. They like to see us ignorant. They like to see us ratchet. They like to see us acting out of character. And so the times when you see people and everybody celebrating the foolishness that they do, it's because they made it important to them. They made an Easter egg hunt important to them. Easter egg hunts are stupid. We all know that rabbits don't lay eggs, yet they find joy in doing it every year. Why? Because they made it important to them. You can't read in this book or in their book about an Easter egg hunt, can you? You can't read in this book or their book about a rabbit laying eggs. Not even as a miracle. Yet, we have our brothers and sisters who desire to continue to live in that. Why? Because they don't, all they want, I say it time and time again, all Israelites want is a party. All you gotta tell them is that there's gonna be some food, some music, and some dancing, and they'll consider it. They're like, yup, I ain't got nothing else better to do. I'll be there. Dare I state that when a party's going on, Israelites will think about going to work late, going to work tired, taking a day off, just to be involved with the party. But when it comes to God, oh, wait a second, you're going too far, brother. That's just a little bit too much. And so I stop and I say, as we turn to Numbers, the 9th chapter, you know, we'll see what the Most High God felt was important to us about what our salvation was and what he did. You know, the 10th plague is not to be ignored. The 10th plague, when the Most High God killed the firstborn of Egypt, from man to beast, is not to be ignored. The same way our brothers and sisters died in slavery, in slave ships, in that Atlantic Ocean, is the same way our brothers and sisters died in that Nile River. You think they cared about your soul? You think they cared about those babies that were being cast into the river that Pharaoh commanded by an executive order, that if it was a female child, let it live, but if it was a male, kill it? Do we remember that? Do we memorialize that? Or do we say that's just in the book of Exodus? Well, I tell you the same when our brothers and sisters were being lynched for whistling at a white girl, for for looking a white man in the eye, for holding a cell phone, for holding a shower head that was portrayed as a gun, that nobody stops and says that this is murder, that lives are being taken away innocently, and we watch and we shake our heads. But our forefathers cried unto the Most High God when these things were taking place. Our forefathers stopped and they said that this is a cruel bondage, and they cried to God when it was taking place. And as a result of that, the Most High God heard that cry, and he decided that Egypt should pay for what they did. Do we think like that? I stop and I say it because I look at Stephon Clark, who in the city of Sacramento was shot and killed. And if you guys watched the video, if you just took a look at what was going on, the first thing the officer said, he was like, there he goes, gun, gun, gun. And if we're watching the signs of the Most High God, that happened in March, and then 2 weeks later, we were memorializing the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A couple of days before that, we were listening to how the murderers, the police, those who shot Alton Sterling, were acquitted. Not even acquitted. They weren't being charged for anything, even though the man was just selling CDs, DVDs. And so I stop and I ask us, Israel, when does it stop? I know you don't expect for the white man to come and say, you know what, we're wrong and we're going to stop doing this. It's not going to happen like that. The same way that we shouldn't have expected in Egypt for Pharaoh to let the people go free. Pharaoh had absolutely no intention of letting his slaves go free. He had absolutely no intention of acknowledging the Most High God and saying, yes, he is the Lord of the universe. So we stop and we do ourselves a disservice when we look at the president, when we look at those who run this country and expect them to acknowledge the Most High God. This season in particular commemorates that only when God got involved was our salvation brought forth. That's why I say don't look to a man. Look to God. Don't look for a Moses. Don't look for a David. Don't look for a Jesus. Look for the Most High God. Brothers and sisters, brothers in particular, this message is to you. That lamb that was killed was for your life. The blood that was shed on the doorposts was for your life. Because those who didn't have the blood on the doorposts, guess what happened? Somebody in that household had to die. There was a firstborn that had to die. Those who were in Egypt, they understood somebody had to die. And so those who feared God did it. And those who didn't fear God paid. Firstborn from man and to beast. We can't imagine that until we see our brothers and sisters shot and killed. I sit down and I say, I want y'all to look at this. Donald Ruth, who went to a church in South Carolina and shot and killed people while they were in the middle of Bible study. They apprehended him without incident and didn't shoot him. And they knew that there was a shooting going on there. Yet Stephon Clark, who had a cell phone and nothing else, they thought he had a gun. Nicholas Cruz in Highland Park, Florida, shot and killed students and teachers. They knew that he had a gun, They knew he was killing people. They apprehended him without incident. Yet Walton Sterling, where they were having a conversation with him and was standing right in front of him, they could not apprehend without incident. If God isn't talking to you, who is? And if these things don't resonate with you, then what is? And if the 10th plague doesn't resonate with you, then I ask you, what is? Because if death doesn't wake you up, I tell you that nothing will. But let's go to the book of Numbers. Numbers chapter 9, verse 1.
Numbers 9, chapter 9, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Jehovah spoke unto Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they came out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the children of Israel keep the Passover in its appointed season. In the 14th day of this month at dusk, you shall keep it in its appointed season, according to all the statutes of it, and according to all the ordinance thereof shall you keep it.
So in the second year, they understood, God made it clear to them that this commandment should be kept. He made it clear to them that even if they were in the wilderness, that didn't matter. They should still observe the law of the Most High God. Keep the Passover in its appointed season. The 14th day of this month at dusk, even, same period of time, you shall keep it in its appointed season, according to all the statutes of it. You know, I listen to Israelites continue to make up excuses of why we can't keep the Passover. We can't keep the Passover because we're in captivity. Oh, it's a Passover offering and we don't have offerings. Well, we'll touch that in a second. But the fact of the matter is that the Most High God, before everything was set up the way we expected it to be set up, he commanded us to keep this Passover. It reads,
And Moshe spoke unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover in the first month on the 14th day of the month at dusk, in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Jehovah commanded Moshe. So did the children of Israel.
So they ate the lamb, they ate the bitter herbs, they ate the unleavened bread for 7 days. It goes on to read.
But there were certain men who were unclean by the dead body of a man, so that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moshe and before Aharon on that day.
Now I want us to understand this. There were people who wanted to keep the commandment, but they couldn't keep the commandment. Let me say that again. There were people who wanted to keep the commandment, but they couldn't keep the commandment. You know, for us, a lot of times we make a lot of excuses for what we do. We wait and look at the Torah, and the Torah wasn't clear to us on what we should do, so we stop and we say we do nothing. But here, these men understood that because they touched the dead body of a man, that they were unclean. So what did they do? They went and asked for advice. They understood that there was no whole written scripture on this part in particular, so they stopped and they asked Moses, they asked advice, what should they do? Because they understood they couldn't do it in the time that God commanded it. And what does it say?
7. And those men said unto him, we are unclean by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we to be kept back, so as not to bring the offering of Jehovah in its appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moshe said unto them, stay ye, that I may hear what Jehovah will command concerning you.
Yeah, he went and asked God, and it reads.
And Jehovah spoke unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your generations shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto Jehovah.
Wait a minute. Journey afar off? What else could you possibly be doing when you have all year to understand you need to come and serve God? You understood from the year before that on the 1st of Abib, well, let me not say the 1st of Abib, that in the month of Abib, on the 14th day of the month, that you should prepare to be there. How could you possibly be on a journey afar off? And I say, brothers and sisters, things happen. You can prepare to serve God, and things may happen that won't allow you to serve God the way you're supposed to serve God. That's fine. that's okay. God is making a provision here that when you can't do what you're supposed to do in the time that you're supposed to do it in, that it's okay. Something can be done. I want us to remember that because that's going to lead into something else that we read about later. It reads,
in the 2nd month, on the 14th day at dusk, they shall keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break a bone thereof. According to all the statutes of the Passover, they shall keep it.
So, he's saying that this is the time when you can make up, when you can do what you were supposed to do the first time in the 2nd month, on the 14th day of the month. Still keep it the same way, but it's on the 2nd month, on the 14th day of the month.
But the man that is clean, and is not on a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, that soul shall be cut off from his people.
But the person, and this is what I want us to understand, the person who intentionally, the person who knows better, he's not on a journey, and he forbade to keep the Passover, that person's going to be cut off. You know, we make people sinners for mistakes. And we act like God doesn't know the mistakes that people make. We act like we don't understand what good intention means. Because we've heard phrases like, good intentions are the pathway to hell. Nothing you've ever read in this book, but that we've adopted along the way. God makes a provision for his people, and he makes a way for his people as long as they are well intent on serving him. That does not mean we can make up what we want to make up and do as we like. I'm saying that when it comes to the Passover, the Most High God, he wanted us to remember and memorialize this season for the thing that's going on. He's saying, keep it the same way, don't break a bone of it. According to all the statutes of the Passover, they shall keep it. And then he goes on to say, but the man that is clean, you who know better, and is not on a journey, and forbears to keep the Passover, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. It reads,
because he brought not the offering of Yahweh in its appointed season, that man shall bear his sin. Verse 14. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, I will keep the Passover unto Yahweh, according to the statute of the Passover, and according to the ordinance thereof, so shall he do. You shall have one statute, both for the stranger and for him that is born in the land.
Now I want us to understand this. The Passover was so important to the Most High God that he told us, he commanded us that even a stranger can keep it. We have to stop and understand that if it's that important to God for us to keep it, then we got to make sure that we hold this in high regard. You know, too often do we look at Passover and it's an option of whether we should take the day off or not. It's an option of whether we should feast for 7 days or not. We stop and we struggle over what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And I stop and I say, Israelites know how to throw a party. I guarantee you, in any time, in any season, Israelites know how to throw a party. The question is, do you know how to have righteous fun? I stop and I say, we've been doing this for far too long to not understand how to make unleavened bread. And unleavened bread is called the bread of affliction for a reason. Because that's some horrible bread. Y'all know what it's like. We've been making that bread all week. We've been rolling it for those who've been making that bread. And we sat down and we was like, nah. And we stopped and we said, nah, I want a piece of that. There's something about leavening that makes this right. Right? You'd be like, and if I eat another one of them crackers, it'll be too soon. That's what we do. We have to stop and make this good for us. Because guess what? The restrictions for the week of Chag Matzot, the restrictions for the Feast of Unleavened Bread are actually not that bad. We can stop and acknowledge that it's healthier eating. We can stop and acknowledge our bodies take a positive turn during the Feast of Chag Matzot. But still, for some reason or another, it's a drag. 2 Chronicles, chapter 35. This will be my last point. Because when we stop and when we look at it, we go and we it's like, oh man, I can't eat this and I can't eat that. And for somebody who came to have to learn how to serve God, you know what it's a reminder of? I used to, when I had to learn how to eat clean, what age is that?
764.
761. When I had to learn to eat clean, you know, it was kind of a hassle to be like, I can't go into Blimpies anymore. They still got Blimpies? Yeah. I can't go into Burger King anymore. I don't want the pork. I just want the chicken sandwich. Before I came into knowledge of self, I used to like the chicken sandwich. Pork wasn't a big thing to me. Oh, I can't go into Taco Bell? And then, not only did I realize about eating clean, I realized the health benefits of eating clean. And those things are the things that helped me along the way. My body was taking a positive approach to doing Torah. But if you don't stop and look at it and see the things that happen, you can't understand the benefit of it. There's benefit in eating clean. There's benefit in the feast of Chag Matzot. But if you don't stop and look at the benefits of it, you're just like, oh, this thing is just a drag. You know, I sit down and I say, the children of Israel didn't understand the benefit of not serving an oppressor while they were in the wilderness. All they could think about is how they wanted water, how they wanted onions, how they wanted leeks, and how they wanted garlic, and how it was free and accessible to them in Egypt, even though it came at a price. And so I stop and I say to us, what do we see the benefit in serving God? Where is the benefit for us, and when will we acknowledge to God that there is benefit in serving Him? You know, I've been dealing with a couple of health issues. And I stop and I say, you know, while you're feeling good, it's easy to serve God. But when you're not feeling good, it's something to push through. You call upon God, and you ask God to be with you. You call upon God, and you ask God to heal you. But when you wake up in pain, it's something to push through. And there's the perspective that we don't keep, because a lot of times when you stop and you go, there was a time when I was in pain, 2-3 days later, it's gone, I'm back to it. Now this one doesn't look like there's any end in sight. And there might not be. What do you do? And so I look at athletes. And I'm not talking about people who just play sports. I'm talking about professionals, top tier athletes. What they do to keep themselves in shape. What they do to make sure they can perform at a high level. And it's the discipline that's required of them to eat a certain way and to not do certain things. If you're going to be a top tier athlete, you have to make sure you get a certain amount of rest. You have to make sure that you keep certain things out of your diet in order that you make sure that your body remains a certain way. And they do it because they understand the benefit of it. Yet, in serving God, God commanded us the proper way to eat. He commanded us the proper things to do to make sure that we stay physically fit as well as mentally fit. And yet, we ignore His instructions. I say often somebody else has to tell us what to do as opposed to listen to what God has to tell us what to do. Did I say that right? We let other people, there's other people who have to tell us what to do as opposed to listening to what God has told us to do. And so, every once in a while, there's a leader who comes along who stops and says, there's enough of this. We've been doing this wrong for far too long. And there will be people who stop and snare, people who will stop and jeer, and who will say, what is this person trying to do? Oh, this is what his intention is. But it was in actuality in the best interest of the people. And so here we go with a young King Josiah. Israel hasn't been serving God the way they should have been serving God for years. And here he comes along, and he hears the word of the Most High God, and he's intent on doing that which is right. It reads.
2 Chronicles chapter 35, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Josiah kept the Passover unto Jehovah in Jerusalem, and they killed the Passover lamb on the 14th day of the first month. And he set the priests in their charges, and encouraged them to the service of the house of Jehovah.
Now hold on. Do you hear that word? Encouraged. People need positive reinforcement. It's not just you're a Levite. It's not just you're a priest. You need to be told, stand in who you are and be who God intended for you to be. If you're going to hold the title of a Levite, if you're going to hold the title of a priest, then walk like a Levite and walk like a priest. If you're going to be the title, if you're going to hold the title of a prince, then walk like a prince. And if you're a child of God, then walk like you're a child of God. Because this king understood that in order to get buy-in from his people, everybody needed to be involved, and they had to understand their role. And far too often, Israelites shy away from and don't like being told that you have a certain role and its importance to this congregation. Its role and its importance to this nation. Everything is not, you should have did, what's wrong with you, why'd you do it like that? Sometimes it's, yeah, I understand you did it wrong, don't worry about that. Don't beat up on yourself. You can actually do this. This is why we need you to do this. A Passover without a priest doesn't make sense. A Passover without a lamb doesn't make sense. A Passover without bitter herbs, without lamb, just doesn't make sense. And here Josiah understood this. And even though he was a young man, he had to cause them to understand. I understand that you haven't been doing it like this. I understand that year after year it's been fine and people have been doing it a certain way. That's okay. This is what we need to do now, and this is why.
And he said unto the Levites that taught all Yisrael that were holy unto Jehovah, put the holy ark in the house which...
I'm sorry, start from verse 2 for me.
And he set the priests in their charges and encouraged them to the service of the house of Jehovah. And he said unto the Levites that taught all Yisrael that were holy unto Jehovah, put the holy ark in the house which Shalom, the son of David, king of Yisrael, did build.
But where was it? This question is not answered. The scriptures are silent on this. Put the holy ark in the house which Shalom, Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, did build. Well, where was it? Because we read about when David brought it back after it was sitting in the house of Obed-Edom. It was there. So where was it? We read later on where they went and the Philistines had it for 5 months and that it had to be brought back into Israel. But where was it all this time? But you see what he did? And I want us to understand about this. He had to put everything back in order. The people had to see that there was a change in order to take this seriously. The people had to stop and look and see that the king, the head, was making a change in his life for the betterment of the people, and that the people needed to follow. And that in order for that to happen, the Levites had to do that. He said unto the Levites that taught all Israel, because they were the ones who was going to stop and speak to the people that were holy unto Jehovah. You dedicated yourself to the service of God. The Most High God chose you to protect this place. Now I want to see you go before those people and let everybody see that the Ark of the Covenant is going back in. is going back inside in its proper perspective. Why? Because regardless of what we've been doing, we're about to start doing Torah. It reads,
there shall no more be a burden unto your shoulders. Now serve Jehovah your God and his people, Yisrael. And prepare ye after your father's houses by your courses according to the writing of David, king of Yisrael, and according to the writing of Shalom his son. And stand in the holy place according to the divisions of the father's houses of your brethren, the children of the people, and let there be for each a portion of a father's house of the Levites.
Now I want us to understand this. Think about it. What actually was going on before Josiah came along? We see in our history, in particular in Jeremiah, the 44th chapter, what our forefathers were doing. We see that they had everything commingled with God. But herein he told them, go back according to your divisions. You know, stand in the house of the Lord. Bring those songs back out and sing to the Lord. Let the people hear you singing those songs. Let the horn be blown in Yisrael. Those are critical parts of what we do. He said, and let there be for each a portion of a father's house of the Levites. And don't forget your brothers either. He goes on to read.
And kill the Passover lamb.
Right.
And sanctify yourself.
Make yourself clean.
And prepare for your brethren to do according to the word of Jehovah by the hand of Moshe.
Now, let me tell you this. You can't get away from this. Nothing's going to go right unless the head is going right. Nothing's going to go right unless leadership is doing that which is right. You can't stop and sit down and say the people around you are doing wrong and then stop and try and go tell people, but I want you to do right. Far too long, as a people, we've adopted the policy of do as I say, but not as I do. We can't do that. We can't be that people. We sit down and I say, we talk about one another, but we don't like when people talk about us. And then, when somebody tries to correct you about what you do wrong, we like to be told, but I don't want to hear that. We like to say, but I don't want to hear that. And why are you talking about it? As a people who did that which is right. And so I stop and I say, when we look about what this leader was doing, what Josiah was doing, he was causing people to understand the fun and the games was over. It was time to serve God. Laughing and joking is great, but you can't take away from the Most High God. These people became far too comfortable in what they were doing and didn't even realize the place was being destroyed, little by little. They stopped and they felt comfortable calling themselves Levites, but the house of the Lord was falling apart. They stopped and they felt comfortable calling themselves priests and the teachers of the law, but weren't actually teaching people Torah. Because guess what? If you stop and see people do wrong and you don't say nothing about it, who do you think you are? What does that make you? When you're silent on an issue, when you stop and see people do that which is wrong and allow them to do that which is wrong, and even more so laugh at them doing wrong. What do you think that makes you? So Josiah stopped and he understood that this is what these people needed to do. First, the people needed to see the Levites killing the Passover lamb so that people could stop and look and say, what's going on here? And then build from there. It reads.
Verse 7. And Josiah gave to the children of the people of the flock lambs and kids, all of them for the Passover offerings, unto all that were present, to the number of 30,000 and 3,000 bullocks. These were of the king's substance.
Well, wait a second. The book don't say that. The book says you're supposed to give up your hand of what God blessed you with. Is that what we just read? And here, the king is given of his substance. Why? It wasn't right. It was incorrect. God understood the intention of the king, but the people needed to be involved with the service of the Most High God in order to return to God. And a lot of times we miss that. The people needed to understand in order to get involved. If you try to go and tell the people, listen, bring your lamb. People, I'm not bringing no lamb. I ain't been bringing no lamb, and I've been doing fine. So he stopped. He gave of his own substance, of what he had. Listen, give this out to the people. It's okay to share this lamb. I want these people down here so that they understand what to do. That's why I say for us, if we expect people to come here during the week and the leaders aren't here during the week, how do you expect people to show up? Why? Just because you open the door? It ain't going to work like that. If we want our kids involved in the season and for the things that we do, we can't just set up things for them to do. We have to be involved in what they do.
That's right.
There's only one way this works. They're watching you for leadership, but you're refusing to lead. They're looking to you for guidance, and you're not there for the guidance. And guess what? Take it from somebody who knows. If you're not there for guidance, they will look to somebody else for the guidance they need. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong. And so, the guidance that these people needed in serving the Most High God was stopping saying, hey, listen, come down for the Passover. Hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. Look at the priests. They're doing it. You don't have to worry about a lamb being there. Just show up. It reads.
And his princes gave willingly unto the people, to the priests, and to the Levites. Hilkiah, and Zechariah, and Jehiel, the rulers of the house of God, gave unto the priests for the Passover offerings 2,600 small cattle and 300 oxen.
That's a lot. Keep going.
Conaniah also, and Shemaiah, and Nathanael, his brethren, and Hashbiah, and Jehiel, and Josaphat, the chiefs of the Levites, gave unto the Levites for the Passover offerings 5,000 small cattle and 500 oxen. So the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their place, and the Levites by their courses, according to the king's commandment.
Right.
And they killed the Passover lamb, and the priests dashed the blood which they received of their hand. The Levites flayed them, and they removed the portions that were to be burnt, that they might give them to the divisions of the fathers' houses of the children of the people, to present unto Yahweh, as it is written in the book of Moshe.
Y'all understand this? They're doing the best they can with what they have. And God gave them a lot. You look at all these lambs that they had. You look at all these oxen that they had. And even though it's not according to the prescription, they're trying to do that which is right before God, because they understand how important the Passover is to the Most High God. It started as Josiah's vision, but it ended up what the people had to do. I sit down and I say to us, whether man or whether woman or whether child, never let anybody silence you concerning that which is right. If it's something about serving God, make yourself to be heard. People won't like you. People will despise you. People will look at you funny. That comes along with the territory. You can't be a leader and be thin-skinned. I'm telling you right now. These people right here, they have to serve God. And honestly speaking, when people are comfortable, do they really feel like leaving their house for something that they don't know what they're going to be a part of? Usually people don't do it. You be like, king, prince, high priest, whatever you say you are, I'm comfortable right now, and I don't feel like doing it. But here we see that God, and I want us to understand this, God blessed it because he understood that that's what Josiah intended, that God understood that Josiah intended for the people to do right. I want us to understand this also. Even as this is going on, God wasn't going to forgive this people. He was still upset at what the people did. But he blessed Josiah and what he did. It reads.
And so they did with the oxen, verse 13. And they roasted the Passover with fire according to the ordinance, and the holy offering sod they in pots, and in cauldrons, and in pans, and carried them quickly to all the children of the people.
Now listen, I want y'all to think about this. Think about this for a second. These people thought they were doing right, according to the commandment, right? How do you get a lamb into a pot without breaking one of his bones? How do you get a lamb into a cauldron without breaking any of his bones? When he roasted with fire, they thought they were doing right, but they were doing some things wrong. But God was still, and that's what I'm trying to tell you about the intention, God was still blessing them according to what they were doing. It reads.
And afterward they prepared for themselves and for the priests, because the priests, the sons of Aharon, were busied in offering the portions that were to be burnt and the fat until night. Therefore the Levites prepared for themselves and for the priests, the sons of Aharon. And the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their place,
right,
according to the commandment of David, and Asaph, and Haman, and Yutun, and the king seer, and the porters were at every gate. They needed not to depart from their service, for their brethren the Levites prepared for them.
Right. They didn't need to stop singing. The praise didn't need to stop. People didn't need to stop what they're doing because they had something on the side waiting for them. See what happens when people work together? They stop, and the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their place, according to the commandment of David. That's not Torah. But he thought that somebody should always be singing to the Most High God. What's going on? So as people came in, they heard those beautiful tunes, and they wanted to be part of everything that was going on, everything that is holy. It goes on to read.
So all the service of Jehovah was prepared the same day to keep the Passover and to offer burnt offerings upon the altar of Jehovah, according to the commandment of King Josiah. And the children of Yisrael that were present kept the Passover at that time, and the feast of unleavened bread 7 days.
Now I want us to understand this. And the children of Israel that were present. Why was it said like that? Because the same way it is in these days and times, everybody's not always going to show up. Not that they were present because they were unclean. They were present because they were like, what's going on here? You know, when you start something new, and when your intent is to serve God, don't think everybody's intention, even though they call themselves an Israelite, is to serve God the way you serve God. You'll stop and you'll look and you'll be like, hey, listen, something good is going on over here. And they're like, nah, I'm going to make this money. They stop and they're like, nah, actually, I'm going over here to do this. I'll catch up with y'all later. Don't y'all usually do that on Saturday? Today's Friday. Or the infamous. Y'all really going to do that back to back? 2 days? Yes, absolutely. Because we find joy in serving God. It goes on to read.
And there was no Passover like to that kept in Yisrael from the days of Shemuel the prophet.
All right, I got to stop you there. I have got to stop you there mid-sentence. Since the days of Samuel the prophet, there wasn't a Passover kept like that, and as I just pointed out to y'all, it wasn't even done right. That's a long time, brothers and sisters. That's a long time of messing up and understanding why we need a day like Yom Kippur. That's a long time of people thinking they doing that which is right, and God continuing to bless them. And he said, I was at a place, BINAH died. And he said, you can't nation build 1 day a week. And I totally agree with him. You know, we stop and we study throughout the week. And then we take the Sabbath day to sit down and try to iron out over, I'm not even going to the use of a scroll, over what? 700 pages. this book stops on 766. We stop and we try to dissect and resolve over 700 pages of history that our forefathers served God. You can't do that. You think you're really going to resolve an issue over a lunch break within 2 hours? Does that make sense to us? And I'm not talking about just here, because no matter how many places I've been to, and I've been to more than a few. I've been to Benazakin, the later Benazakin. I've been to Shema. I've been to Quahal. I've been to B'nai Adat. I came back to Shema. And now we're here. And I'm telling you, it doesn't change from place to place. I've been at Beit Elohim where they've had these discussions. I've been at Beit Shalom when they had these discussions. I've been at Beit Av Shalom while it was still a congregation having these discussions. It doesn't change. People have been arguing about God since the beginning of time. However, we can do things better. But you got to dedicate more than one day. Anything that you're good at, you practice that. And anything that you practice and that you became good at, you had a passion for it. It was in your heart. You was like, I want to excel at this thing. No different from serving Torah. No different from serving the Most High God. No different from observing Torah. No different from applying Torah. If you want to be good at it, you got to do it more than one day a week. These people didn't get this right, not because they didn't read, but because they hadn't did it since the days of Samuel the prophet. You know how many kings passed within that time? And they had righteous kings within that time, including King David and King Solomon and King Hezekiah. Josiah was one of the last ones. And so what they're basically saying, because Samuel anointed the first king, from the anointing of the first king to one of the very last kings in Israel, there has not been a feast held like this. And so the question I ask us is, do we find fault in that? Will our feast be better next year than it is this year, or are we content with what we have? Finish it up.
And there was no Passover like that kept in Yisrael from the days of Shemuel the prophet. Neither did any of the kings of Yisrael keep such a Passover as Josiah kept, and the priests and the Levites and all Judah and Israel that were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the reign of Josiah was this Passover kept.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Brothers and sisters, I want us to understand the importance of the day before I call Chief and Yam, Rabbi Chief and Yaman back up. You know, brothers, is more important to you than anything. And when the Most High God said, no male shall appear empty-handed, and I'm paraphrasing, that wasn't a suggestion. That was a command. And before anybody gets it into their mind about where offerings go, where donations go, from the beginning of time, the donations, from the time that type was instituted and free will offerings were instituted, those always went to a man, whether they were Levites, or whether they were leaders and things of that nature. In order for us to have a good feast, in order for us to be in tune with the commandment of the Most High God, we have to come up. Now, if you don't have it, you don't have it. And then you're speaking to what God has blessed you with. But if God has indeed blessed you, then you're supposed to give according to the feast. Not just Passover, but for Shavuot and for Sukkot, Chag Sukkot. Hoping and praying that y'all got something out of what I said, and that the Most High God found these words acceptable to be spoken before his people. As I bid you all in the tongue of our forefathers, Chag Tov L'Kem.
Once again, giving praise and honor to Jehovah, the King of the universe, and thanking him for allowing us to be here this day. Amen. And thanking Maury for the words that he spoke here today, and hopefully people were paying attention to what was being said. Because this is a day, once again, that we are supposed to rejoice But the entire week was supposed to be a week that was supposed to rejoice before the Most High God. So we always have an opportunity to make improvements. So whatever we were lacking in times past, is always, you have the opportunity once you wake up in the morning to look forward. You always have the opportunity to improve and do better. So we have feasts that are coming up. We have times where we can rejoice before the Most High God, but we just have to set our minds on that and focus on that. It's just like, and you know, you may feel a way about what I'm about to say in terms of this day. I think it's May 27th. What? May 27th. I think it's the 27th. The day after the Shabbat.
What's up?
Flyers went out already for May 27th.
Okay.
Right? So we know what we got to do as a congregation for May 27th.
Okay.
Shavuot is the week before that, but we're not speaking about what we're doing for that.
Correct.
So that's what I'm saying. We have to think about what we do when it comes to rejoicing for the feast of the Most High God.
Correct.
These are the seasons that God has given us to rejoice before Him. But like that's what Maurice said. We know how to do events. And when it comes to doing events, we know how to plan, we know how to do and go all out for it. But we could do the same and even more for these seasons. And like, you know, when we speak about the children that were off from school this week, and I'm only doing this because they said stretch this to 2 o'clock, even though the text said 1:30. But so
I said 1.
Wait, you said the text said 1 o'clock. They said stretch it to 2 o'clock. We're not going to stretch it to 2 o'clock, actually. But just to give an example. So the children were off from school this week. So it was Shabbat.
Right.
Then the fun began. Watching videos, playing video games, listening to music, staying home, being taken care of by the parents, enjoying life for 5 days. Friday comes and all of that stops. Where did the fun continue for that?
Right.
This day is also supposed to be fun. So all of that fun was taken away. Where's the replacement? Oh, I hear voices, some food is here. So now, just to keep all of that in perspective, or keep that in mind, that we have to make these seasons of joy.
Yeah.
That's just the same way we can go out for May 27th.
Right.
We can go out for Shavuot.
Yes.
We can go out for Sukkot. We can get places, tell people come and dress up nice and do the things that we're supposed to do and still rejoice before the Most High God. Still keeping the holy days holy, but still keeping the feasts, those 7-day feasts throughout the entire 7 days where we can gather and worship before the Most High God and also have our fun and enjoy each other's company as well. So we do thank the Most High God for allowing us, because even regardless of that, God has given us the opportunity to still come before Him and worship before Him. For many people, once again, don't have this opportunity. So this is not something that we should be sad about. We should be glad that God has selected us and given us this opportunity. That even if people may say, "Oh, you're doing that 2 days in a row," the fact of the matter is, we were given the instruction to do so 2 days in a row. We were given the wisdom to do so and the blessing to do so 2 days in a row. While many people are missing out on this opportunity to receive the blessing that we have. So we have to take hold of the blessing of the Most High God when He is giving it unto us and make sure that we make the most out of it. So we're going to begin to close out for the service and continue on with the rejoicing of the day, feasting, rejoicing before the Most High God, singing songs, playing music, because that's what this day is about. So at this time, I'm going to ask everybody to stand and begin to close out without prayer. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Thou hast chosen us from all peoples. Thou hast loved us and taken pleasure in us and hast exalted us above all tongues. Thou hast sanctified us by thy commandments and brought us near unto thy service, O our King, and hast called us by thy great and holy name. And thou hast given us in love, O Jehovah our God, appointed times for gladness, festivals, and seasons for joy.
Amen.
This day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the season of our freedom, a holy convocation as a memorial of the departure from Egypt. For on account of our sin, we were exiled from our land and removed far from our country. And we are unable to go up in order to appear and prostrate ourselves before thee, and to fulfill our obligations in thy chosen house, that great and holy temple that was called by thy name, because of the hand of violence that have been stretched out against thy sanctuary. May be thy will, O Jehovah our God, and God of our fathers, merciful King, that thou mayest again in thine abundant compassion have mercy upon us and upon thy sanctuary, and mayest speedily rebuild it and magnify his glory. Our Father, our King, do thou speedily make the glory of thy kingdom manifest upon us. Shine forth and exalt thyself upon us in the sight of all living. Bring our scattered ones among the nations near unto thee, and gather our dispersed from the ends of the earth. Lead us in exaltation unto Zion, thy city, and unto Jerusalem, the place of thy sanctuary, with everlasting joy. And there we will prepare before thee the offerings that are obligatory for us, the continual offerings according to their order, and the additional offerings according to their enactment, and the additional offering of this feast of unleavened bread. We will prepare and offer unto thee in love according to the precept of thy will, as thou hast prescribed for us in thy law, through the hand of Moshe thy servant, from the mouth of thy glory, as it is said. And he shall offer an offering made by fire, a burnt offering unto Jehovah, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, and 7 he lambs of the first year. They shall be unto you without blemish, and their meal offering and their drink offerings as have been ordained, 3/10 parts of an ephah for each bullock, and 2/10 parts for the ram, and 1/10 part for each lamb, with wine according to the drink offering thereof, and the he-goat wherewith to make atonement, and the 2 daily offerings according to their enactment. Our God and God of our fathers, merciful King, have mercy upon us, O thou good and beneficent being. Suffer thyself to be sought of us. Return unto us in thy yearning compassion for the Father's sake, who did thy will. Rebuild thy house as at the beginning, and establish thy establishment, and establish thy sanctuary upon its site. Grant that we may see it in its rebuilding, and make us rejoice in its reestablishment. Restore the priests to their service, the Levites to their song and psaltery, and to Yisrael to their habitations. And there we will go up to appear and prostrate ourselves before thee at the 3 periods of our festivals, according as it is written in thy law. 3 times in the year shall all our males appear before Jehovah thy God, in the place which he shall choose, on the feast of unleavened bread, and on the feast of weeks, and on the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before Jehovah empty. Every man shall bring according as he is able, according to the blessing of Jehovah thy God, which he hath given thee. O Jehovah our God, bestow upon us the blessing of thy appointed times for life and peace, for joy and gladness, even as thou hast been pleased to promise that thou wouldest bless us. Sanctify us by thy commandments, and grant our portion in thy Lord. Satisfy us with thy goodness, and gladness with thy salvation. Purify our hearts to serve thee in truth. And listen to her, O Jehovah our God, with joy and gladness thy holy appointed times. And may Yisrael who hallow thy name rejoice in thee. Blessed art thou, O Jehovah, who hallows Yisrael and the seasons. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Amen.
Shema. thank you for our lives. We thank you for strength and good health. We thank you for the opportunity to pour upon your name once again. We thank you for allowing us to gather before you on this day. We ask that you would continue to look upon us and teach us how to find favor in your sight. We do ask that you would forgive us for the iniquities, transgressions, and sins that we have committed before you. And we ask that you would forgive the sins that our fathers have committed before you as well. And we ask that you would continue to show favor to the nation of Yisrael here and abroad. And that you will continue to teach us the truth of your word so that we may continue to rejoice before you and to show you honor. For as we draw near unto you, we must honor you in the presence of all people. And we ask that you would forgive us for being slack and for any ways that we have sinned against you. Please pardon our transgression. Please pardon our transgression. Please save us for your name's sake and build up Yisrael so that we may proclaim your name throughout all the earth. For you alone are the creator of the heavens and the earth, and beside you there is no other God. And we thank you for the opportunity to know that you are the true and the living God. It was your word that brought everything into existence. It is your word that keeps us alive this day. For you are the one that is keeping covenant with our fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, even though they are no longer alive. But we know that you are a God that lives forever. For you are a God that has no beginning and you have no end. So therefore we ask you to continue to shine your light upon us, and that you would allow us to find favor in your sight once again. Please remember us as you remember our fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Please remember us as you remember the deeds that they performed before you. Please remember us as you remember the covenant that you have made with them. For you are the one that keeps us alive, and we thank you for shielding us and protecting us. We thank you for teaching us the truth of your word, and we thank you for letting us have the opportunity to gather before you on this day. For we know that you are the God that passed over Mizraim. And you are the one that slew all of the firstborn of Mizraim on our behalf. For we are your firstborn among all the nations upon the face of the earth. And therefore we acknowledge you as the one that has redeemed us and brought us out of slavery and out of that oppression. And once again we find ourselves in slavery. Once again we find ourselves being oppressed. Once again we find ourselves in all types of turmoil. But we know that you are the God that allows us to walk firm and to walk straight throughout all the trouble that we face in this world that we live in. So we ask that you continue to shield us and protect us and guide us in the way that we should walk before you. We also ask that you will continue to watch over those who are sick, that you would give strength to those who need your help, that you would give recovery to all of those who are injured, that you would give peace of mind to all of those who are troubled, that you would give comfort to all of those who are mourning, that you would watch over them, that you would bless them and allow them to get through any situation or any trouble that they were facing on this day. For we thank you for letting us know that you are the comforter of Yisrael. We thank you for you being the one that watches over us. And we ask that your light will continue to shine upon us, and that you would lift us up out of any turmoil and any trouble that we find ourselves in. For there is no God beside you, and you're the one that gives peace. So we ask that your covenant of peace will be with us, that your covenant of truth will be with us, that we may learn to walk firmly and walk in the truth of your word forever. We ask that you would guide us, protect us, show us the way that we should live before you. And we thank you for teaching us that we are the children of Israel. For there are not many of your people that have the opportunity to gather before you in this day. So we thank you for letting us have the opportunity to worship you in this day. And we ask you to continue to protect us in all the ways that we go before you. We ask you to watch over us on this day. We also ask you to watch over us tomorrow on the Sabbath day. We also ask you to watch over us in the weeks to come. We also ask you to watch over us as we go to work, as we go to school, as we do anything. We ask you to teach us how to live righteously before you. Therefore, we are the ones that are supposed to be a holy people. And we ask that your holy word will stay within us and will continue to guide us and pick us up. For we thank you for everything that you do for us. For we are the ones that you have called out. We are the ones that you've allowed to wake up this day to know truth. We are the ones that you've allowed to wake up this day to have food to eat. We are the ones that woke up today to have clothes to wear, place to live, and leave from. And we ask once again that you will watch over us as we are together and watch over us when we are apart from one another. For we know that you are the God that sees in all places and sees all things that we do. So even when we are not able to see one another, you're the one that sees all of us. For you are the God of all the universe. Everything that's in the heavens above and upon the earth beneath and in the waters under the earth is before you. For you are in total control of every event and every situation that takes place in this universe. So we thank you for allowing us to call upon your name once again. We thank you for allowing us to know that you are the true and the living God. We thank you for letting us know that you are the King of Israel. We thank you for letting us know that you are the God that brought us out of Egypt. We thank you for letting us know that you are the one that guides us and shields us and protects us. For we know that there is none else beside you. There is no king beside you. For you are our Lord and you are our Savior and you are our God. You are our King and you are the master of the universe. And you are the one that protects us all. You are the one that provides us with everything that we need in order to survive upon this earth that you allow us to walk on and upon this earth that you have created. We thank you, Jehovah, our God, for the many blessings that you give us, for the good health that we have, for being able to see, be able to walk, be able to talk before you. We ask that you continue to bless us, shield us, and protect us. And that any of us that have any pains, that you would alleviate that pain from within us. Any of us that have any troubles, that you will allow us to be alleviated from the troubles that we face. That we'll be able to walk in comfort, be able to live in comfort, and be able to live in peace before you. For you're the one that watches over us. You know everything that surrounds us, everything that's within us. For there is nothing that is hidden from your sight. And we thank you once again, Jehovah, our God, for your blessing that is upon us. And we ask for that you continue to bless us. We thank you for the things that you have done for us in the past. We thank you for the things that you're doing for us now. We thank you even in advance for the things that you will do for us in the future. For we know that as long as we call upon your name and serve you honestly and truthfully, that you will save us from any trouble. We thank you, our God, for everything that you do for us once again. For there is no God beside you, and you reign in the heavens above, over the earth beneath. And everything must serve you. Everything must bow down. Every nation must bow down to you and worship you and proclaim that Jehovah is God. And beside you there is no other. Blessed be your holy name forever. Hallelujah. 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 Amen.
Amen. Shema Yisrael, Yah.
Go to all court, the Yisrael, Amor, Yehovah spoke unto Moshe, saying, speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, on these mountains you shall build the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, give a whole kind of Lord, Israel time. That year, you will not live how you can get time. From this time, you will not live how you simplify. Shalom. Lord, bless thee and keep you. Lord, give his face to shine upon thee, be gracious unto you. Lord, remember his countenance upon thee and give you peace. Amen. Let's enjoy this feast while it lasts.